Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 2, The Least Dangerous Game. So, this episode really picks up from the end of the last episode, spoilers of course, with Meono basically being monitored for mess ups by Commander Ransom, as instructed by her mother, Captain Freeman, of course. That's where the heart of the conflict of this episode is coming from, I would say. Um, and it really has, I think, is tending to show that this episode really shows, unlike in previous seasons, especially the early seasons, that while before we've always seen Milner in conflict with authority. But that was always when she knew there wouldn't be any true consequences. That, well, I think she not necessarily that her mother, a little bit that her mother was protecting her, but more of like, she wasn't going to get kicked out, that kind of stuff. But now this is for the first time showing her when there's consequences, the risk of an actual consequence of actually being kicked out of Starfleet. And does show that she does care about Starfleet to a certain degree. She just doesn't like the rules and such. So that's what this episode is really showing. So I did see some people kind of like not care, like why are they retreading this one character for her? That's because they're treading it for her when she has to face that there will be consequences. If she basically ships up, it's gonna be no problem. But if she doesn't ship up, she's gonna be shipped out. So that is something very important that this episode shows that never could previously in the previous episodes or seasons. That's why it's being shown, why it's important for the development in the series, for the whatever they are trying to tell with these characters. That is what they're doing. And then of course that was largely the A plot. There's not too much to go into, but we also did get to see some Ransom. Basically, he was purposely like making that the best decisions, hoping Milner will mess up, which tells you something probably about him. Like he kind of likes his authority in some ways. I don't know. I do feel like there's some more innocence I could really put into his character, but he was essentially like hoping to get Milner to disobey his orders, and got to the point where she did, but she managed to not get in trouble just by basically running up a bunch of stairs in a very funny gag. Um, but that's a minor part of this episode, in my opinion, because it's more serving as the catalyst for Milner's character development more than anything. And then of course we have of course Rutherford then on the playing service doing all this, and that's just done purely for comedy. Him with the chief engineer, they put in situation out of the elements because Ransom wanted to get Milner or to get Milner to disobey his orders. Was purely they chose those characters down there from a writing perspective just because they knew it would be funny and the glimpses that we got to see. And yeah, they were right. That was funny. Hilarious. Both characters being put out of their comfort zones, especially for the chief engineer. But both of them were out of their comfort zone for this. So speaking of getting out of their comfort zone, that's essentially what Boimler's character development story, the B plot, is for this. Boimler being advised by Tindy to get out of his comfort zone more often. Not to always make the most calculated decision. And so basically he starts basically agreeing to things to do stuff, and it actually does help him a little bit. Agreeing to take part in more, for that better term, cultural activities among the crew, i.e., and something. This is something Bowman should have realized sooner. But if he wants to get ahead, do stuff with senior officers. That is just what you gain their good graces that way. It's very much kind of like the wine and dine stuff. You got to go and chew the fat. Do stuff with the higher up so that way they can look at you favorably. That's essentially what Boimler partially learned, but he kind of also learned like he's not going like the next person who walks. He did say that next person who walks up to me, I'm going to say yes, and he does, and he gets hunted. It becomes a prey for a hunt. Granted, if you wanted to maybe do more risky things, into better fly better network, at least he should have asked that alien a few questions beforehand, such as we learn at the very end, it's a catch and release style hunt, not a catch and kill style hunt, which is actually something very interesting to know because we've had previously in Star Trek where our heroes, our cast, come across an alien who's being hunted, essentially who's being hunted, and will end up being killed. We saw this at least in an episode of Deep Space Nine. Chief O'Brien befriends him, and then of course we have the Herosian in Star Trek Voyager, and there's probably a few others that I can't recall off the top of my head. But the point being is we have seen this before, and so this is kind of a play on that. But instead, the species that hunts has decided to go with a catch and release style system so they can still do the hunt as they need, but they realize they don't need to do the killing part, just the hunting part, which is kind of an interesting thing. But I really like how they played with that one Star Trek trope for the B plot here, and it was, I think, a really good way of exploring the Star Trek universe, and I really did like it. And then I think at the end, and they, kind of show that, and a little bit humorous, Bournemouth kind of does still take the wrong decision. So in the game that they're playing, which they also play the game, which is basically a D&D knockoff, which is a Ferengi knockoff and all that. It's hilarious, but minor part of the episode just so for humor, which of course this is a comedy show, so probably talking about the humor is a good thing. But basically, Bomo makes a move and ends up being a very bad move for him because he decides to take the risky option in the game. And hopefully that will reinforce what Tindy's been telling him, that you don't have to say yes to everything. But that is, I think, a minor part of the episode. Not minor part, but I guess what I'm trying to say is it's only a small part in a much bigger episode where we see Milner struggle with the fact that she's facing a real threat to her Starfleet career, just being in Starfleet at the bare minimum. And Bowman also realizing that perhaps to actually get ahead, he needs to do some more, I'm going to use the term networking because that's essentially what he learned to do, being more willing to do stuff that's not always in his comfort zone, not always taking the most calculated decision, but saying I'm going to give that a try. And for a few of the things, it turned out very well for him. In fact, all of them, it did kind of turn out pretty well for him. Even with the Green 200, still turned out pretty well for him because, got him noticed by the captain for accommodating that alien's culture, which is just, it didn't work out the way he wanted it to, but it did kind of work out. But that's, I think, the important thing to learn. Because Tendi and Rutherford didn't get much character development in this episode. I have a feeling we're going to get more for them later on in the show, but Mariner and Bowman will have, in seasons 1 and 2, get the majority of the character development. And then Rutherford and Tendi's character development normally comes as a result of some action by either Bowman or Mariner. Normally Mariner, oddly enough. But yeah, that is actually where I'm going to end this review, so I hope you enjoyed it, and please be sure to let me know what did you think of this episode in the comment section down below. So tune in next week and to get my review of episode 3 when it comes out. So thank you for watching. If you haven't done so already, feel free to like, upvote, share, subscribe, follow, heart. You know the drill. Check out the links down below. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. Live long and prosper.